And a good Friday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on this Friday night, the 27th day of October, 2023. And we're sorry for the late hour of the show tonight. We've been sort of getting some material ready. I was watching the news wires as well. I want to, before I get to Kleo tonight, and we're grateful to have her, we're going to get to her in just a second. But we do have a breaking story that is coming out of Maine tonight. The gentleman, Robert Card, that basically has been the one responsible for the horrific shooting over the last couple of nights in Maine. 18 people dead, nearly 60, almost 80 people injured. They found him tonight with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. This has been just within the last hour. They're going to have a press conference at 10 tonight, but we'll be here doing the show. But it goes without saying that whenever these events happen, people are left with a lot of questions and a lot of lost loved ones. And ultimately, there's no justice when these killers do this because they're too cowardly to face justice. So this gentleman took his life. They thought they had him surrounded last night at his house, and he wasn't there. They did find his guns and so forth, but there were rumblings and rumors that he actually was listening to the police on the scanner. He's very intelligent. He was an ex-military guy, but his basically spree of crime has come to an end tonight in his own suicide by a gunshot wound with a shotgun. And again, our prayers with the families tonight in Maine. I saw Kathy Tardif in the house last night. She mentioned that she was, her and her mother were close to the vicinity of that, and we're grateful that they're okay. And I know we've got other listeners up in Maine tonight. And our prayers for the Lewiston community. I truly mean that, and we're sorry to hear that, but we're glad that if this is the way it had to end, then this is the way it had to end. But whenever I see these shooters do this, it's just such a cowardly way out because, again, there's no justice ultimately for the families, just to pick up the pieces and the hurt, and it's tragic. But it's the state of our nation tonight, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit. We're glad to have on the phone with us, as we always do. We've been having her on pretty regularly on Friday nights, and we're grateful for her. And I've got the phone charged up so my phone don't die on you like it did James Akers last night, but Kleoudis is in the house tonight. Good to see you. I even brought the cowboy hat out because we're going to get some fired up stuff tonight. So I know you've got a lot of things to talk about. Your prime minister was here in America, and that was one of the reasons we brought Kleo on tonight, because she is from Australia, and our nations are connected, even when the two leaders we have are both morons. But it's good to see you tonight. How are you, friend? It's always a pleasure, and looking forward to talking to you about this and some other things. And always a pleasure, and thank you for what you do for the McFiles.
Hey, Chris. G'day, everybody. It's good to be here. I just saw the black hat. Oh no.
Oh no, is right. Well, I was looking for a black vest. I misplaced my clothes all the time. I had a black vest, and I was going to wear the black vest with the hat, but I'll do that next week. But no, listen, it's good to see you, and I do want to say I hope you're feeling better. I know you was really fighting the flu here the last couple of days. Are you doing better tonight?
I'm feeling a bit better, praise God. I just, it's spring here, everybody. We're the opposite, and the flu in warm weather isn't much fun, but it's fine. It's okay. It's minor issue. It's good to be here. It's good to be here with everybody.
Tell us a little bit about your prime minister. You're not a big fan. He's been in the States here for a couple of days, and Joe Biden and him have held these press conferences. And I noticed one of the tweets, one of the things you sent me, is that the Australian media basically is sort of catching on. I know that they have painted Biden in a favorable light down there compared to Trump, but I think that even the Australian media, as left as it is, can't deny that we've got a massive problem here in America, just like you all have in Australia with leadership. And tell me a little bit your thoughts on this trip and why he came up here. And, he's a very condescending prime minister. Some of his comments has been very sort of... Joe Biden is too. I mean, look, they're both two peas in a pod. And look, I'm not saying Trump ain't condescending too, because Trump's Trump. And I mean, these politicians, I mean, they say what's on their mind, but this guy he's just a nasty little bird, ain't he? He's just a nasty turd. That's all I got to say. I hate to use that analogy, but he's just a nasty turd.
Well, the reason for the visit was that President Biden invited him in May. Reason was that President Biden cancelled his plane trip to Australia because of some dysfunction that was going on with your Congress at the time.
Right.
He couldn't leave. And I just want to flash back a bit to President Trump also cancelling a trip to Australia because he was being impeached. So we kind of have dodged both visits. In the case of President Trump, he sent Vice President Pence to Australia, which probably barely got a mention in your media. He came with his wife, Karen. So that's the background. So the history is of the two countries being allies goes back a very long, over 100 years. And I think regardless of whether the left or the right, which is really almost the same thing now, are in, they certainly pay lip service to the alliance. Australia is a strategic ally in the South Pacific because China, I've noticed people commenting or journalists commenting that, it's an Australia-US alliance visit with meetings, but China got mentioned several times. In 9 days' time, I think our Prime Minister is going over to China. So he had to walk a very delicate diplomatic rope this week. But apparently they're in the Oval Office and they were ushering all the press out so they could have private time. And, Joe, he was mumbling and he said, the chairman asked me, why do you talk to Australia so much? So I figured that was a made-up story. But there were references because there were references to our government wanting to, in inverted commas, apostrophe, whatever you call it, normalise relations with China. So business was done. Our Prime Minister gave more money to the Ukraine. He gave Microsoft billions of dollars. Did business over there. And the two affirmed, their enduring friendship with both countries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I saw that. I do want to...
And condescending, yes. He called us recently white people, and it was in a condescending way. And
yeah,
I think politically the majority of the country, we had a referendum not granting... We declined to grant Indigenous people an additional voice that would be above every other voice of every other Australian because we all get one vote to Parliament, and he's pretty much framed us as all racist, which was not the case at all. So similar politics, ruling by dividing people, and that's what we're both enduring. Our Prime Minister is of the far left, and the mistake that people make, we kind of, when they got together, we were calling them dumb and dumber. But, make no mistake, you don't get to those positions by being totally stupid. You might be wrong, but you're not stupid. And I think that we sort of don't do ourselves any favour when we consider the opposition that is destroying our countries without the ability to engineer such social change and havoc before we even realise what's happening.
I'm reading a tweet from the Twitter handle Australians versus the Agenda. It says Albanese meets with Biden to give Ukraine. This was today. A $20 million assistance package, another $20 million, which takes Australia's overall assistance to Ukraine to a whopping approximate $911 million. So you all are approaching $1 billion. I know we're definitely in the billions with them here. How is this playing in Australia, the people? And look, I'm with you. I think we make a terrible mistake thinking these people are dumb. They're not dumb. Are they left-wing loons? Yeah. Are they misguided souls? Oh, yeah. Are they got dark agendas? Oh, yeah. Are they people that, would do all sorts of very evil things to conservatives and Christians and people of faith? and Trump supporters? Oh, yeah, they would. Would they steal elections? Oh, yeah. Would they make you mask up on a hot summer day of 98 degrees while you're driving and in your homes? Oh, yeah, they do a lot of things. Would they push a poisonous vaccine on you? Oh, yeah, they do a lot of things. Absolutely, they do. But they're not stupid, Kleo. They're not stupid. And your prime minister is not stupid. He's a left-wing loon, but he's not dumb.
No. We're a small nation, 26 million people. We are suffering an economy at the moment. The cost of living is increasing. I just got a message from a Facebook friend about an 85-year-old woman sleeping in her car. Christian missionary, hasn't got a lot of connections here. She's served overseas all her life. Landlord just kicked her out. This is the sort of thing that's happening to people. There are families sleeping in cars. And our Prime Minister is running off to give money to a country that most of us, maybe not myself, but most of us, could not point to it on a map.
That's true.
And we don't have, we're not 26 million people. We are a highly taxed country, but we got people not working as well since COVID. And he writes these checks to other countries, and his predecessor, Scott Morrison, sent military vehicles worth quite a lot of money to Ukraine with promises of support. The Russian embassy here is treated like you can't even imagine how Russians are starting to be treated here. They're not even they weren't given permission to build a new embassy. This is serious stuff. We're treating Russia like we're at war with them. Why? And we're in the South Pacific.
Yes.
I'm not, going to apologize. I'm not an apologist for Putin, but I'm just trying to look at it practically. If we're going to look at our own nations first, what is in our nation's interest? What is in the US interest? What is in the people's of Australia's interest? And our governments are not putting the people first.
Well, they're never going to. Governments never do that, and this one's no different. I will say this: he does. Look, I'm reading the tweet from the Citizen Free Press. It says Joe Biden's hosting Albanese. This guy just lost a major referendum he spearheaded to enshrine an indigenous voice to Parliament in the country's constitution. Aussies rejected it. He called his people ignorant after the vote. Biden's kind of guy. They, as I said, they are both condescending pricks. I mean, just say it's a Friday night show, and I got a cowboy hat on, so I can use that word as my Friday night sort of let your hair down show. So is it not Biden's kind of guy? I mean, does the Australians, when y'all hear that kind of stuff, what do y'all respond? I mean, you got to say, what do y'all feel about that?
Well, I mean, my age and up, it was his deplorables moment. How dare he? How dare he, frame Australians who are really kind people a little bit too laid back for their own good, to be honest with you. That's how we got put in the position we were put in during COVID, because everyone was trying to do the right thing by staying indoors so no one else would catch this cold from anybody. Not minimising COVID, I'm saying that, we believed I'm talking generally, the nation believed what they were told about whether it was a vaccine, whether it was about a mask, whether it was, stay 6 feet away from someone, don't go to the store. You could go, to be blunt, you couldn't go to church, even an outdoor church service, but you could go to a brothel.
That's right. That's right.
We're not stupid. I mean, well, some people evidently are, but we've endured all of that. So, we threw Scott Morrison's allegedly conservative government out. And again, as I've mentioned before, as the prophet said, the government will be pulled down. Well, we have a worse government now. We have a government that sympathises with Hamas, that doesn't call it out. I'm pleased. I looked at the vote. We'll probably get to it, the UN vote on October 7, but we're sending money to Palestine. We are not putting the normal conditions of aid on the Palestinians. It's almost like lip service support for the Jewish community in Australia. It's appalling. And when you said some journalists are waking up, I think that would be the minority of conservative journalists, but you've still got the far left activist media you know, almost framing anything that they do as you know, as perfect, as statesman-like. So we have exactly the identical issues that you do in terms of the left, the agenda, the division. You know, we've been divided on race. We're being divided on attitudes to you know, an alleged medication, an immunisation. We're being divided on faith-based. And now, you know, this is, I said to you, I thought the country was divided over COVID. I have never seen people act so irrationally as they have over this Palestinian-Israel issue.
Yeah, I'm with you totally. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to download that picture to my email regarding the UN tonight, because that is a very, very troubling thing, and I want to go to that right now. Let me put this in perspective. The UN tonight has voted, and I've not even gotten to the comments, and I meant to do that. We'll probably do it on our next Israel update, first of the week. But Kleo, the UN tonight basically took a vote, and they could not even pass a 2/3 majority condemning Hamas and calling this thing terrorism. And again, this is, you know, we're going to look at some of the anti-Semitism in the country, and I'm glad you brought up the division that is there tonight. And it's unbelievable to believe that there would be people in this country that would feel the way they do about Israel in these protests. We're going to talk about those tonight a little bit, and then when we get to the afterthought, I've got some video I want to show. But I want to read this tonight. This is from Greg Price on X tonight. The United Nations General Assembly just voted on an amendment to condemn the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel by Hamas. It failed. It failed tonight to get a 2/3 majority to pass, with 55 countries voting against it, 23 abstaining. So let's just say 78, because when you abstain from something, that's basically saying we ain't going to vote for it. Ambassadors even applauded after it failed. That's the state of the world with the feeling against Israel. Now, let me get your thoughts on that first, because I want to segue into some of this anti-Semitic rhetoric that's going on and talk with you about it tonight. But when you heard about this tonight, and I know it's been within the last few hours this vote was taken, what was your thoughts? Because again, it capsules what's going on not only here in America but across the entire planet tonight, Kleo. And it's disturbing to me. It's very disturbing. I'm gonna probably light some fires. I'm gonna light some bushes on fire tonight. But when you see this, what was your thoughts?
Whenever I note silence, I agree with you. It's support. If you remember Bonhoeffer in pre-Nazi Germany, in the Germany of the late 1930s, we know that the churches that supported Hitler were in the minority.
That's right.
Okay, the churches that stood up. There were churches that stood up to Hitler, okay, but the majority of churches were silent. They were silent. It wasn't the churches. I don't think the issue was the churches that supported Hitler. The issue was the majority of churches that said nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that when nations abstain, it's cowardly. When we're not voting on a two-state solution. We're not talking about anything else. All the motion was to condemn October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel.
That is right.
How could you abstain from voting on that? How?
Because you hate Israel. That's why. And the world hates Israel. And I want to pull something else in here while we're talking about that, because this was a poll, a shocking poll that they took of U.S. 18 to 39-year-olds, and this is by Marina McDevin, McDivin. Got my first three letters of my name, but changes after that. McDivin, McDivin. I want you to listen to this, Kleo. This is unreal. This is out of The Guardian, and this was posted just yesterday. 63% of U.S. 18 to 39-year-olds. That's not just teenagers there. That's middle-aged adults. That's young adults from 18 up to 40. They do not believe, or they're unaware. They're literally unaware that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. 23% said the Holocaust was a myth, or it was exaggerated. 12% say they had definitely not even heard of it. And 11% went as far as to say, hold on to your seats with this, that it was the Jews that caused it. Very similar to what is being said along campuses tonight and said along church circles tonight, that the Jews are the reason for this latest bloodshed and debacle in the areas of the Gaza Strip tonight in the southern part of Israel. Now, when you hear that poll, what's your thoughts on this? But I want to ask you a deeper question. Where do you lay the blame of this on? Do we lay it all on the schools, or do we have to turn to the parents? Or do we just turn it on to a nation that is losing its way with God? This is, I guess, this was U.S., so this was an American poll. I would say those numbers worldwide would probably fall along the same lines and maybe even higher. It was shocking that 63% are unaware that 6 million Jews, when you say Holocaust, they don't even know what it means. And then to have 11% of that number, and it doesn't say how many were surveyed, but still, that's a lot of kids. 11% says Jews caused the Holocaust. What was your thoughts when you heard that?
Okay, so that survey was taken a little while ago. However, just think about that. That means that with all the pro-Palestinian propaganda, those polls would be far. I think the numbers are worse now, and the ignorance is worse.
Exactly.
Because you can't, and you see citizen journalists or alternative journalists grabbing young folk who are protesting and asking them historical questions about Israel and Palestine, and they cannot answer it. All they do is chant, from the river to the sea. They don't know any history. They're just going for the next protest. Like last year we protested this year this is what we're going to protest. They're looking for a cause, and the far left are giving it to them. And so I actually, those numbers don't surprise me. I actually think they're worse now, and they're worse here as well. It's almost the new cool thing. Just watch whatever the new emojis are. The cool thing now is to support the Palestinian cause. No one mentions Hamas. I always know when people are trying to debate with you something about Israel, they will never mention Hamas. They keep mentioning the injustice against the Palestinian people, and they give you false history. They will refuse to accept Israel is a legitimate state, always has been. They're clueless about biblical history, which is history, okay? It's not a mythical book. The historical facts, they point to the name Palestine, forgetting that the Romans named it almost to mock the Jews. They don't know their history. And so we've got a generation, and you ask who's to blame. I mean, obviously the enemy, the spiritual, the enemy wants to destroy the nation of Israel. He wants to destroy the people. He wants to destroy the race that the Father brought his Son through to us. That's been his mission forever. But it's a combination. It's an education system. You look at the protests in the universities there. You look at protests here. I'm seeing most unspeakable things said. People all of a sudden think it's okay. And then when people say, well, do you think it's okay to, disembowel people? Do you think it's okay to behead babies? Oh, that never happened. But they take the word of Hamas. They'll take the word of anybody.
Right.
When Israel, and even, Netanyahu, he's a Zionist, Satanist, Luciferian, pedophile. You can't debate anything with these people. They throw back something that they have without evidence. It's almost like you're talking to a brick wall. It's such a spiritual haze, veil over people's eyes. And I've not seen it about any other subject that I can recall.
Yeah, I haven't either. I've got to read a couple. I want to read a couple of things tonight, and I could read a lot more, but these are pretty despicable in themselves. I do want to put up this statement from the Australian Jewish Association on X, and it is really sort of disturbing, and I'll let this read it because I've got a lot to say about this tonight. But hang on one second. Let me get this refreshed so it'll come up there. There it is right there. I want to read this, Kleo. This is says this. It says, the City of Melbourne Council and Lord Mayor Sally Capp have chosen to celebrate the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust by flying the flag in whose name they were murdered at Fed Square. This is the equivalent of flying the Nazi flag after the Holocaust. And it's not just Melbourne. Look, there's stuff going on all over these campuses tonight, and we're going to show you some of the protests here and some of the stuff that we've seen. And this is not even the most violence that's out there, but that's your nation. When you saw that, what was your thoughts about that? Because that's next door to you, isn't it?
It's close, but I have Jewish friends, and how are they supposed to feel? How are they supposed to feel the country that they've been good, law-abiding citizens? They have not engaged in any hateful behaviour. All of a sudden are hiding their Jewishness. I mean, that council's not my local council. Where I am, our mayor lit up, I won't get into the location, but lit up a landmark in the colours of the Israeli flag. And sure, there were protests against that, but he was sort of commemorating the memory of those who lost their lives on October 7th. Right. Now, I don't know why we're flying Palestinian flags when these people attacked Israel. I don't know why. And really, why are we even involved? What happens is these councils have far left people elected. For the most part, people don't even know what they're voting for. And they use their power in councils at the local level to have gestures like this, ignoring all their constituents. My member of parliament, I live in a far left area. It was not always far left. It was left and it moved far left. He was he gave a speech to Parliament condemning Israel. I'm going to write to him. How dare he not be looking after his constituents and meddling in Middle East politics, which he knows nothing about. But this is where we're at. We vote for people. It's going to affect us at the local level as well as, federal, state and federal. And I'm surrounded by people who don't know who they're voting for. They don't understand history. They don't try to read history. They maintain their ignorance. They get their knowledge off TikTok. And we've got this generation that are just, throwing YouTube videos around where everything that they think is true is true. They're brainwashed. It's a deeply spiritual battle. And, we knew that we were to expect it. I think, we know to be ready, but I think we were caught off guard with this.
Yeah, I'll agree. Let me.
And I don't see it turning back. I don't see it turning around.
I don't either. And this is a tweet from the same Australian Jewish Association, but they picked up something that happened in this country yesterday at UCLA, Southern California. They literally, we're going to play the video after we get the afterthought, of a Jewish genocide on the U.S. campus. The Muslims and the leftists were openly calling for the mass slaughter of Jews. Quote, Israel, Israel, you can't hide. We want Jewish genocide. Our social media, similar sentiment, or on social media, the similar sentiment is widespread. Kleo, that is literally pages taken out of 1937, 38, 39 Nazi Germany prior to 6 million Jews being gassed. But I'm going to lay the gauntlet down now in the bigger manner. That's disgusting. Harvard is disgusting. Columbia is disgusting. The university in Brooklyn that the Jewish kids were basically blocked in the bathroom, hiding out in the bathroom for their safety yesterday because they were concerned about the Palestinian students threatening their life. But you can't very well go to these kids at UCLA and say, well, that's disgusting, you shouldn't be doing that, when you've got church leaders and network leaders and people with telegram rooms and people with radio programs and people with radio networks and people with huge social media followings basically saying the same thing. They wrap theirs up a little bit differently, but they wrap it in terms like Zionist and Rothschild. They wrap it up in deep state. They wrap it up in dark entity. They wrap it up in Kazakian mafia or Kazarian or foolery or whatever. I'd say a bad word if I wanted to. But all of these terms, folks, all of these terms, it's wrapped up with a bow. But when you get down to it, they don't realize, and I hope they don't realize it. I hope it's being done out of ignorance, but not all of it is. They're not any better than these kids at UCLA. Israel, you can't hide. We want a Jewish genocide. Now, these people that are saying these other things would get mad and fight and not speak to you for a month and not speak to you for 6 weeks and vow your destruction and vow that I'm going to get McDonald. He is just, if you only knew, he's done went crazy and he's supporting them Jews and all this mess. And you doggone right, Chris is supporting the Jewish state tonight. And if you don't like it, honey, it's all right by me. Because I'm standing on the right side of history on this. I'm standing on the right side of this argument. I've been standing on the right side of it from day one, but it didn't start on October the 7th. I've been standing on the right side of this ever since I've been saved. Ever since I've met Jesus, I've been standing on the right side of this issue because I understand the biblical mandate, but I also stand the moral mandate that you don't stand with people that call for the genocide of a human race. And you don't stand with people that slaughter babies and cut the heads off of babies and rape dead women. You don't stand on the side of that. And I've got something called moral clarity that many in this audience tonight, some, at least those that share it out, don't. Because they share that same sentiment. It may be not spoken, but it's believed in their heart. It may not be spoken, but they don't have the moral clarity enough to understand what's right and wrong. And see, when I hear this stuff, well, I understand what you're saying. And then the second after that, but this, but that, the Jews this, the Jews that. The Rothschilds are behind this. The mafia is behind this. There's a secret, deep state, occultic sect of Jews running the earth. Kleo, that is no different. That is no different. That is no different than the UCLA college students walking around calling for Jewish genocide. It's the language of the Nazis, folks. It's the language of Hitler. But let me take it further. It's the language of the devil. It is the language of the devil. Please get me out of this because I'm getting my temperature up. The face is turning red with the black hat tonight. I wore the white shirt instead of the red shirt, but I'm getting fired up about this. Am I right? Is there anything I just said that was not right?
No, you're absolutely 100% right. And the source of the issue and the hatred is Satan himself. I was just before we came on, I was just remember in London, a woman was arrested this year for silently praying outside an abortion clinic.
That's right.
Silently praying, silent, no words, but arrested. Yet thousands can march in London, call for jihad, call for the murder of Jews, call, for gassing the Jews, call for genocide. No problem.
Yeah.
That's the state. That's the state of the world. That is the state where we arrest and we demonize people of faith, Christians. I'm talking Christians now, who are trying to preserve and honour and respect life is an offence, but calling for the eradication of an entire race is fine. And I've noticed, I don't know what's happening over there, but everyone that tries to, turn up and be a Jewish presence, I've watched them peacefully walk in. I'm incredibly courageous. And some alternative journalists that actually don't pick a side, but one this week was assumed to be Jewish, and he was harassed. And then the police gave him a hard time.
Yes, they did.
And just complete. And I'm just seeing this where our police service again acting in a very bizarre, irrational fashion, where the victim is the one that's blamed, and the people who have this apparently righteous cause can do whatever they want, say whatever they want. And Australia is going to regret that it didn't rein them in. I mean, there are people, normal, rational people, say, you need to deport these people.
Yeah.
You need to deport people who are calling for the death of other Australian citizens. And the Jews didn't just turn up here and get a free pass. They've been here a while, working hard, productive, contributing members of society, and all of a sudden they have to justify their existence while people are calling for their death. It is evil. It is demonic. I mean, I caution people. People are now also saying, including Stu Peters, the church is making an idol out of Zionism. No, I'm not. But I do recognise that land is promised by God. It's theirs.
Let me stop you right there a minute. When he says that we're making an idol out of Zionism, Stu Peters couldn't spell the word IQ. Stu Peters couldn't spell Zion. Stu Peters is a stupid. Let me remind people who Stu Peters is tonight. Stu Peters duped thousands of you out there believing that some evil entity, and I'm surprised he didn't claim the Jews did it, and I think if you go back and probably found some of his videos, he would probably insinuate this, that they were putting snake venom in our water last year. And I saw Christians by the dozens, posting that bullshit that they believed that they were drinking water laced with snake venom thanks to Stu Peters. He was one of them. He wasn't the only one. People went out, and guess what Stu did on that craziness, Kleo? He made millions of dollars on it. You know how he did it? Because he was claiming he was selling water purifiers that would purify your water from snake venom. And there were Christians biting into it, believing they were shaking like a leaf. Oh my God, I'm drinking water in snake venom, which turned out to be nothing but crap. And see, he wants to throw that disparaging remark because he put a video up of a burned up hospital, basically, again, repeating the lie of Rashid Tlaib, repeating the lie of Hamas, repeating the lies of terrorists who cut babies' heads off and rip babies' wounds out of it. And this same liar, this same cheat, this same charlatan, this same Schindler, whatever you want to call it, and I'm not talking about Oscar Schindler, I'm talking about swindler, I should say, this same thief who stole and extorted people for money out of a lie, and he wants to say that we're making Zionism an idol? I mean, really? That ain't even the pot calling the kettle black, but I want to read this while we're on it. Colin Rugg, good Twitter handle. I have nothing but disgust for Stu Peters. I pray for his soul. But I have nothing but disgust for him. Because, and while I'm at it on this Friday night, and I'm not screaming as much as I probably want to be, but I'm raising my voice to make a point tonight. I want to make it clear that he's part of the reawakening tour. Am I right about that before I go get any further? Is he still part of that movement?
Yeah. Well, I believe so. And the snake venom theory person, the chiropractor, calls himself a doctor. He's part of that tour as well.
He is part of that tour, and they
Stu gave him the platform and pushed him.
Thank you.
I think, and that guy still to this day sells the vitamins and sells
the vitamins and sells the water purifiers. And there's Christians, oh my God! And you know the world's about to burn to the ground, folks. And you got terrorists in your border, probably in your country tonight, and we're worried about frequencies and DNA and ultra million K ultra people and reptiles and zombies running around and snakes running around us and snake venom in our water. And then we wonder why our country is in the state it's in tonight. It's a Friday night, folks. It's a Friday night. I ain't got to get up in the morning So I can let it all hang out tonight, and I'm going to. Let me read this story to you. This caught my attention because it's happened to me, but not for the same reason. The man behind the Harvard truck that drives around displaying the names of anti-Semites, guess what? Kleo had his house raided by the SWAT team this morning. Hamas supporters really don't like it when you call them out. Anti-Semites don't like it when you call them out. And that's what you are that are pushing this stuff tonight. You are nothing but a Jew-hating anti-Semite. We're not making an idol out of anything. Look, I'm going to tell you something. You better come to grips with this. There is a moral clarity. Our show's titled tonight, The War Against the Lies and the Fight for Truth. And it's never been more intense. And what makes it so hard to fight this war, it ain't the left that's pushing most of this crap, Kleo. It's the freaking Christian community. And let me read on. Adam Gillette, the man behind the truck, revealed that cops searched his home at 1:30 in the morning. Someone had falsely called the police, claiming Gillette was holding a gun to his wife's head. We call that, what is called, swatting. And the SWAT team showed up. If you antagonize enough anti-Semites, listen to me, they will call law enforcement and tell them you have a gun to your wife's head. Then a SWAT team shows up. Thankfully, they were out of town. Gillette is not backing down. He says, I'm not going to be intimidated or bullied, and this is a great reminder of why we need to double down on our efforts for the truth. I will amen, Mr. Gillette, and I do nothing but send a disgusting rebuke. A disgusting rebuke. I do not care who you are. I don't care how popular you may think you are. I don't care how popular you think your little channel is or your Telegram room or your news network. If you are spewing this lie tonight, if you are spewing these lies, you are probably not even as worth as the blood of a dead dog to me. And I mean that, and I don't mean that with any kind of desire for you to have harm done to you, but I have more respect for the blood of a dead dog than I do for somebody that pushes anti-Semitism. And then when you do this is what's going to happen, because they go after you and they get angry with you. And he's lucky he wasn't at home, because they probably would have went into his house and searched his house and had him outside with your hands in the dark of night with it behind the back and handcuffed and everything else. Because McDonald had a little incident back in March of 2019 similar to that. But anyway, I don't mean to be all wired up tonight about this, but it's burning me to the core, Kleo. This ain't coming from the left. We expect it from the left. But it's no different than these kids on UCLA basically calling for Jewish genocide. When you throw disparaging remarks, all you're doing is throwing gasoline on this fire right here. Am I right?
You're right.
Am I right?
I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, and it's irrational. I remember I adored Dr. Derek Prince in the 80s, and you know he lived in Israel. He had very strong teachings in Israel about Israel, and you know, one of the things he said, like it is going to be the issue of these times, and you have to have moral clarity. You have to know your scriptures, and you have to stand for truth, and it's going to get difficult, and it's going to show the Christians. It's going to really start dividing. It is already dividing Christians. You're going to see what's emerging of people who actually believe the Bible and people who don't. I mean, that's what's happening.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't know if it's even about that. Look, because most people that will listen to you say that, they will ardently fight with you that they do believe the Bible. They will ardently tell you that they're Christians. They will ardently tell you that they're people of faith. And it makes me wonder, are they that spiritually dumb, spiritually ignorant, or are they not really what they say they are, which that's a part of the better possibility? Are they hypocrites? That's another possibility. Are they just deluded? Are they self-deceived? Which is another possibility. Or do they have something in their heart called hate? Racial hate. Hate. I got the tweet up from Stu, and you responded to him. He said he got the picture again. That's the picture of one of the stills of the hospital bombing, supposedly. No different than what Rashid Tlaib was saying. He said, this is what our quote unquote greatest ally is doing to innocent children.
That is a Jewish slur, folks. I wonder how many Christians shared that out on their timeline. I wonder how many Christians did that. And Kleo responded to him and said, well, our ally gave warning, now do Hamas. Did you say that in your Aussie accent when you was typing that up? I don't know if he heard the Aussiness in that.
It was just the constant disregard for brutalising, raping teenagers, burning mothers, cutting babies in front of their parents. We all know what's been going on. No mention of that. No mention of it at all. And I just, if you want to, yes, people are being hurt, people are being wounded, people are being killed. I'm in a situation, Chris, my background is Eastern Orthodox. The Greek Orthodox Church in Gaza was bombed.
Yes, talk about
Israel.
that. Talk about that.
Okay, so now we've brought, what people forget is not every Palestinian is Muslim. Many are Christians of either Orthodox or Catholic connection, okay? The Greek Orthodox Church is 1,600 years old, so again, there's the historical significance of having a Christian church there. People, fully up front here, people went there for cover. People thought they were safe in a church. Now that former, I think, Congressman Justin Amash,
yes,
lost family members of his died. Okay, he was a fairly anti-Trump Republican.
Right.
And I'm very, very, very upset. I saw footage of a disabled man wounded being taken out of the church that had been bombed. I am not heartless. I know that these things are happening. And I thought, another Greek friend of mine, we just put our hands in our hat. We were just so upset because we knew it was Israel were aiming for just across the road where Hamas conveniently had were hiding, whether they were hiding ammunitions or their headquarters, or there was a Hamas target just across the road. The church got not entirely destroyed. There's misinformation, but people were injured, people died. The fact that they put out numbers was a lie. You don't know within 5 minutes how many people are dead. That's just ridiculous. But I am being upfront. I'm well aware that a Christian church was bombed and that people died, people that went there looking for cover. I'm now watching Islamist websites condemn and try to draw Christians into being anti-Jewish over this. And you've got the Jerusalem Patriarchate. So when I say Jerusalem Patriarchate, it's not like the Catholic Church where there's one pope. With Orthodoxy, they're almost like autonomous regions with their own headship, okay? So the Jerusalem Patriarchate put out a post condemning the Israeli attacks. I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled, and I'm looking for the condemnation of Hamas for what they did. So now, just to put in perspective, because sometimes people of evangelical background may not be aware, there are 250 million Orthodox Christians on planet Earth. It is not the biggest church, but it is significant, and it's significant in the Middle East. And so the effect of that, it was just I don't want to minimise the death, okay, please understand. But the PR effect of this has been horrendous because it's dragged Christians in the Middle East against Israel. So, that's what I'm looking, and I'm looking for some sort of post that's kind of says something different. But I can tell you that the Islamists, the Palestinians, are sending all their love and concern to the Greek Orthodox, and it's just such a mess. It's such an absolute mess because people are truly suffering, but they can't. No one's thinking back to what started this. No one's thinking back to, well, if you go around brutalising women and children, mind you, in war, in the Geneva Convention, you don't go after private citizens, you go after the military. They went in, they cut through the fences and they went in and they grabbed the most innocent of Israel, the southern kibbutz area. These people are farming people. They're not highly militant people, and Israel, and what people might not know, this Supreme Court, all this talk about the Supreme Court that Netanyahu was trying to rein in, just know that the Supreme Court in Israel are the ones who stopped, whose ruling was that the military could not ever, and I grasp it and it makes sense, could never shoot an unarmed person. So what happens? Those people that cut through the fence, the tanks didn't shoot on them for 1 hour because they seemed unarmed, but what they had were knives, what they had was gasoline, what they had was the ability to cut people and burn people. And it was this, oh, let's be nice about war. People will come in, and it tied the Israeli army's hands to defend the country at their most vulnerable point. But I think my take on it is that from October 7th, even the Israeli people who supported the Supreme Court, who believed that, well, we're not going to play nasty, started to think, hey, we played by the rules. No one else is playing by the rules. And even then, as the Israeli Defense Force are attacking targets, they're still not trying to aim for civilians. They're giving them warning. They're giving them notification to get out. They're saying what their intentions are. Hamas never did Israel that favour. And as for people saying we've got no water, we've got no gasoline, well, Hamas have it. Hamas have a lot of money to buy rockets. Tell them to spare some rockets and buy you some food. That is the injustice of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Listen, we're running out of time. I've got about 5, 6, 7 minutes. I do want to do one thing here. I was going to pull this up right here. This is the. I want to read something that you sent me from. I'm not going to name the person's name, but I want to run this by you. And I read it this morning on the Bible study, and I want to read it tonight on the show. I'm trying to calm down a little bit, a little wired up tonight, but he addressed you, and he said, videos or evidence by fellow Jewish friends and my mate who work in Gaza for the UN saw these people being treated as dogs. Speaking of the Palestinians, sort of goes to what you just said. They never show the injustice of terrorism by Hamas. It's always this supposed injustice by Israel. And then he goes on to say this. This is really when it gets anti-Semitic. The establishment of a Jewish state by the Rothschilds and British under the Balfour Declaration in that area and taking over Palestinian territory was an error, period. It was always going to end up in a mess, and the war that we've seen for the last 40 plus years. Do you understand that Israel is a nuclear state and funded by the U.S. to the tune of over $15 million a day? Arab states moving in would be a world war, period. And then he says something to the effect, he says, I think the trouble would be in a critical thinker or an atheist or humanist is that you're right. And it's quite hard being right in the face of people who are wrong without sounding like a cuss word, he says. People go, do you think the vast majority of the world is wrong? Well, yes, I don't know how to say that nicely, but yes. And so forth. Again, I want to make it clear tonight, and we got about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go in afterthought and start taking questions. I want to read one other statement tonight. Again, not identifying the person, but I want to read this to you. This sort of capsules, again, the anti-Semitism out there. Israel and the United States are committing a genocide against the Palestinian people inside Gaza. It is happening before our eyes in history, and ask yourself, what did you do? Kleo, that is coming not from, again, a left-wing fringe website. That's not coming from people that are liberals. That's coming from people that are coming at this from a Christian perspective. And what do you do with that? I guess that's my question as we wrap this part of the show up tonight. And stay with us, folks. We're going to take your questions and comments shortly. Just bear with us. What do you do with that? How do you fix that? How can we even begin to fix that if where this is coming from is not from the left? And look, we can get upset with those kids at UCLA. It's disgusting what they were saying. Disgusting. But you can't very well get upset with the kids because they're hearing it from the adults. They're hearing it from the adults. Are they not?
They are. I mean, I think you've talked about it before. You send your child off to college and they're experiencing people who appear to know what they're talking about for the first time, and they have no tools and no resources to debate. Plus, they're ostracized. If you've watched the Jewish students interviewed lately, I think even on Fox, they're terrified. They're terrified. Where's the sense of justice? Is anyone not looking out for them? I don't how to fix it. Look, in my life, I fix myself. I'm very much into making sure I'm okay. I can't. That fellow that you just read, what he wrote to me, Chris, as we were talking, he was sending me another video. Watch this. What do you think about this? Do you support this? Like, he's not leaving. I kind of feel like I can't debate. I'm not going to debate publicly with someone who we don't agree on the basic premise that Israel has a right to exist, for a start. But so if ignorance, all you can do is follow the people who are educating. I mean, I've gained a lot out of listening to your Bible studies, going back to the history of Israel. I've learned a lot. I've refreshed myself because, I might have these things that were sort of formed in me when I was very young, then I put them aside and then got on with my life. It's just that it's now that we're facing this issue worldwide with anti-Semitism, has it come back to be something that we need to be conversant about. So how you fight, you get your life right individually. You have to, you have to be 100% very, just remember that you're a Christian, okay, because people are mistaking us for being, for following a faith that doesn't have Christ. So you need to always make it very clear who the Messiah is. I shared with you how a Jewish friend of mine reached out, we need the Messiah now. Well, he's come. So we need to not forget that God was not taken by surprise by this. Nothing happens that escapes the eyes of God. He knew this was coming. He's ready. We need to be ready. We need to have our relationship right with God. We need to know our history, know our facts, be ready to give an account to people. We need to support people. I grew up in the days when you could still have a Christian book in a school library. I grew up with when you could take a Corrie ten Boom book out of the school library. Those sorts of accounts. Remember the stories of Christians who protected the Jews, Bonhoeffer. We have to school ourselves as individuals, school our families, our communities, pray for those locally around us, because the big picture stuff, Chris, I could argue back and forth on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Maybe someone might pay attention, maybe someone might learn something, but the most important thing I need to do is make sure that my heart is right, that I don't have any anti-Semitism in my heart, that I love I love what God wants for this earth. Jesus has come. We have a Messiah. They haven't received him. They are not perfect. It's not about the fact whether they're perfect, whether they saw Jesus. A lot of Christians kept saying, they rejected Jesus.
But Kleo, but not to stop you, and we're going to let you finish this up, but has Americans accepted the Messiah? No, we haven't.
No.
This nation and Australia, no nation of the earth has accepted him tonight. The whole world has rejected him. The whole world has rejected him. Go ahead. Keep going. Finish this up.
It's exactly right. It's just don't neglect your own spirituality in all of this, because when this stuff happens, we get so caught up in the fight. We get so caught up in the trying to fight the deception that we can lose our peace. We can lose, and I'm not talking about ignoring, I'm talking about making sure that we're very focused on Christ in this battle, that we understand that it's a spiritual battle. And again, I want to quote Dr. Derek Prince, and this is not, look, this isn't scripture, this is an opinion, but it always, it kind of resonated with me. He said in the 80s, when you see something happening to Israel in the physical, you can bet it's happening to the church in the spiritual.
Very well said.
And so, and it is, because the enemy is after our children. Look at this whole trans movement. He's mutilating the children of Western society. He's hurting women. He's hurting men. He's stealing. He's robbing, killing, destroying. And that's what's happened to Israel, and that's what's happening to the church. And mind you, why Israel got attacked? It's because they had their guard down. They were so busy being nice. The Supreme Court, no, don't shoot anybody. Don't defend yourself. They made the rules of engagement such that Israel couldn't defend themselves. And we as a church, we're so busy apologising for our existence that we're not defending our own children. And I think that lesson is there. And I'm not to ignore that there's a real problem happening in the Middle East. But I'm saying also in the church there's a real problem. It's the same. It's an unfair. Don't be looking for the enemy to play fair. The enemy has walked into your churches and he's taken your children, and it's time to take them back. And it's time to use the spiritual weapons that God has given us to be sensible, obviously. But, I always say, you've got to prepare yourself in the natural. Can't be stupid about this, but never neglect your prayer, never neglect being right with God yourself. You don't know what's going to happen in any day, and how quickly the world changed on October 7th, Chris. Absolutely. It was reminding me of September 11th. How quickly it changed. So just be aware that as the enemy is attacking Israel, I believe, and it's pretty obvious, I don't have to be a prophet, he's attacking the church in the spiritual.
So well said, my friend. So well said. Listen, I'm going to talk to these folks a little bit. Thank you for being with me tonight, and glad you're feeling better. And we're going to carry this on and get some questions and comments from the audience. But thank you for sticking around with me tonight, and good insight. Good insight. I love the. I think Derek Prince was right on, and I think it's a very powerful thing. And I just want to tell our audience I just a little wired up tonight, folks. That's why a lot of you tell Kleo when she comes on that she's the balance. Like McDonald's on. He's on steroids. You provide this calming voice, So we thank you for providing the calming antidote to the MacMan on a Friday night.
I'll be honest though, Chris. When that black cat's on, even I get a bit frightened.
Well, look, I'm going to say this: people can spurn and get all caught up about my demeanor. I'm going to say it. This is the way I feel about it. You know what, Kleo? We all need to be this angry. We all need to be this angry about this. I think if more people was to get a little mad as hell, maybe the world would be a little different tonight. Because, see, the things we get mad at and the things that we get passionate about don't matter to a hill of beans eternally. The things that do matter to a hill of beans, we're silent about. You got a church tonight, and we ain't even talked about this. You've got a church tonight that is carried away with DNA. I was just looking at just the flavor on the internet, in Telegram, just this week, and religious channels, religious things. You've got the church tonight chasing after frequencies, generational curses, DNA, reptilian DNA, serpent seed doctrine, occultism, whether, again, Israel is controlled by the mafia or the Rothschilds. They can't decide. They sort of go back and forth between the two. Whether Joe Biden's a clone, whether Donald Trump is sending signals that Donald Trump is we're playing a movie with these trials, that none of this is real, that we see going on in front of us. It's all a movie. That's what the church is bogged down in tonight, while this world is on the brink of World War III. And when you have a church in that state, and then you can't get mad about that, and you've got no emotion about that, you just sit around silent like a knot on the log, then I tell you what, I'll take my emotion any day. I'll take my anger any day. I'll take my statement any day. Now, it may not be for everybody. Chris is Southern, and Chris is just a good old South Georgia boy. I've been doing this for 6 years, 7, and people have gotten used to it. There's been some that hadn't got used to it and left, and that's fine. But I would rather get intense about things that are right and things that are morally right and against things that are morally wrong, and actually the real truth, not this variant of truth that is out there tonight, not this variant that I wouldn't even call it truth. I don't even know what you call it at this point that the church is chasing. The church has become one more psychological soapbox. That's all it's become. And it's been an echo of Charles Darwin. It's been an echo of Sigmund Freud. It has been an echo of the New Age humanist. It's been an echo of the occultist. It has been an echo of witchcraft. It has been an echo of anything that it can get its hands on to get views and get people out. And I'm going to say it again about Stu Peters. Look, I was probably a little rough about Stu, and I wasn't trying to make any personal disparagements about it. Probably shouldn't have said a few of those things, but I will say this. He duped a bunch of Christians, and now this same duper is out there pushing this anti-Semitism against Israel, and the same Christians that bought the water purifiers over the snake venom lie are buying in this lie tonight. And to be honest with you, it's coming from the same snake. It's called the devil. It's called the devil. Did I sum that up pretty good?
You summed it up very well. Very well, Chris. Agree 100%. 100%.
Now, you don't have to say that just because you're on my network. You can tell me, and I won't excommunicate you. Say that really sucked, McDonald.
All right, well, I agree with you
98%. What's that?
I agree with you 98%.
98%. Okay, thank you. At least she's honest.
I agree with you 100%.
No, at least she's being honest there. All right.
No,
you got anything else?
100%.
You got anything else you want to say tonight before I let you go? Before I let these people start talking?
No, I think I've said it. I'm just getting it's a funny message from another. I think I might have mentioned just as I'm trying to talk. Watch this video. It's just. I don't have enough hours in the day to watch this rubbish. And, it's not like I'm not familiar with the arguments. And it's not, I think I want to say, and that no one wants to see an innocent Palestinian baby hurt. I think what we are saying, it almost feels like drawn into that where you started it. But the point is, they did start it. They provoked it because they knew that it would draw a response. And you have to have clarity about what happened. And you cannot condemn Israel without, if you're going to condemn Israel, you need to condemn what Hamas did. And that includes the UN. And also, our countries, I think the US, 30% of UN funding comes from the USA. We have to pray. We have to pray for our nations. We really do have to pray for turnaround. And I'm not saying that, I don't know how things are going to go, but all I know is that no matter how they go, we have to stay anchored in Christ. We cannot. It's all I want to say is do not lose sight of Christ in this war, because on the battlefield you get weary. You're watching the bullets. You're watching the enemy, and you keep keeping your eyes on Christ, off Christ, and that's the way you're going to get harmed and hurt. So keep your eyes on Christ. Keep your eyes on the one who will protect you and your families, and be obedient.
Yeah, I'm with you, dear. All right, listen, thank you so much, and I'll be in touch with you. Thank you for what you do with the McFiles.
Our countries, I think the US, obedient.
Thank you for what you do for the McFiles in the moderation room, and I appreciate you being with me tonight. Thank you so much, Kleo.
God bless everybody. God bless you, Chris.
You too, Kleo. Take care. Kleo, everybody, put some fire in that house for her tonight, and we're grateful for her and so forth. And good Lord have mercy. I ain't done yet. But I appreciate Kleo being with me tonight. I do. We really brought her on because of the Australian connection to our country tonight. Her prime minister's here, and she had some opinions about Albanese, and I wanted to get her take on that, but I did want to get her take on this other. Folks, the opinions on this show are my own. This is the McFiles, and we've been doing this 6 years, going on 7, and there are just some things that, and I get told this by people, well, I'm just scared of you, Chris. I'm scared of you. And there's no need to be scared of me. What you need to be scared of tonight is the state of your nation. I've never seen the state of people that the things, again, that they are upset about, folks, and the things that get them in a tizzy, the things that cause them to lose sleep, the things that cause them to stop. And I'm not pointing to this show, but they will throw the towel into a show that tells them the truth to chase something, to chase a lie.
They will reject outright anything that doesn't fit their world. And if they don't get their way, it is literally like watching a playground of petulant children, 5th graders, literally, that, again, are more concerned about things that in the scope of eternity matter zilch. Zilch. And we need to grow up. We all, I'm speaking to myself tonight, folks. I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking to me. I'm speaking to the church of the living God, that we had better grow up and mature and act like mature adults. If we don't, folks, if we could only see, and if the Lord would let us just peek at what's ahead, it'd probably have every one of us not eating for 6 weeks, fasting and praying, begging God for mercy as what's to come, and asking God to intervene to stop it. Folks, this world is on the brink tonight of utter destruction. Utter destruction. But the great war that we're fighting is not even in Israel tonight. The great war we're fighting is against the lies that are being promulgated by demon spirits and people that, again, I've said it 100 times, should know better. People that I feel in my heart of hearts should know better. And they don't. And it's mind-blowing that they don't. Do I get upset? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I get upset. But I get upset at the right thing. And I don't stay silent in the face of the wrong thing. That's how I feel about it. All righty. All righty. Jason says I could listen to Kleo read a phone book. I'll pass that on to her, Jason. I'll pass that on to her. Oh, that's good tonight. If you got a question for me, folks, if you got a question, put it in the house. Put it in the house. Everybody's thanking Kleo. Corey says, I'm with you, Chris. I'm angry. The church sat back and was silent during the most horrific attack on the Jewish people during World War II, but now they're speaking up and it's garbage that's coming out of their mouth. Corey, that is so true. What the church is saying tonight, they're not even clarifying who's the enemy. You got church pastors, folks, you've got church leaders, can't even clarify that Hamas is a terrorist group. And let me say this again tonight. There's no such thing as a Palestinian. There's not one. I challenge you. Get your Bibles down. Go find the word Palestinian in the Bible. You can't find it. Can't find it. Can't find it. You can find the seed of Esau and Ishmael. Edomites, the Arabs. You can find the Arabs. You can't find the word Arab, but it's basically the Edomites. We've been talking about this on Wednesday night. There is no such thing as Palestinian state, folks. Joe Biden went out there today and again pushed for a Palestinian state, claiming that that will bring peace to the Middle East. It will not. Corey, my anger, again, people can mock and laugh, and that's all right. That's fine with me. As I said, I've gotten used to the kitchen. I've gotten used to the heat. But I feel the heat about it. I could express things a little differently than I do sometimes. But you know something, as I said, there are just some things worth getting mad about, folks. And this is worth getting mad about. This is worth getting mad about. We are literally spewing rhetoric, folks, that led to the death of 6 million Jews. Do you realize that 63% of your teenagers up to age 40 don't even realize 6 million Jews perished in the Holocaust? I never will forget this. I was substitute teaching here in Knox County about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was
it was recess, and we were, because it was a high school, and we were exchanging classes. My class was going to another teacher's class, and I was on break, so I followed the kids to her room and introduced myself to her. And she's a very nice lady, and I think she was a PE teacher too. And I remember sitting in the back of her class. I said, "Do you mind if I sit in just to bide the time for the hour?" And she's not a bit. And it wasn't even a history class. You know what she got up and taught those kids about? She taught the kids about the Holocaust. She told them kids, and I was thinking to myself 5 or 6 years ago, why would a PE teacher in a high school health class teach a bunch of ninth graders that the Holocaust was real? I understand it tonight. Because 63% of your 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders don't even believe the Jews died in it. This is worth fighting for, folks. That's a lie. This is the war against lies that we're fighting. And then, to make it even more rich, you've got people out there posting falsehoods, and calling the falsehoods truth, and claiming what the falsehood is saying is fighting against lies. We call that apostasy. We call that being an apostate. And we call that being somebody that God has given up to a strong delusion. By the way, folks, when you reject the truth, 2 Thessalonians 2, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, because they did not love the love of the truth, God gave them up to strong delusion that they would believe a lie and be damned. If you don't believe that is happening tonight in full force, look around. Look around. It's happening. You don't want to listen to the truth? Then you will accept a lie. And many are doing it. Many are doing it. I said that pretty calm, I think. Anyway. Emelina says, do you believe that it is the fear of the leaders not speaking on more of an indifference? Is it fear or indifference, Emelina? I don't think it's either. I think it's just a pure plain T devil. I don't think they fear a thing. You think these people on Telegram fear anything? They don't fear nothing. I've read some of the most vile things, folks. There ain't no fear of God. And then when people challenge them, they just blow it off. They blame everybody else for everything that happens to their networks. And then when people speak truth to them, they never stop and think maybe what I'm saying is false. They don't fear nothing. And indifference? No, they ain't got. No, they're very passionate about what they believe. They're not indifferent. They're just plain controlled by the devil. You ask, Emmeline. You ask. You ask. I told you what I thought. Oh. I got oh. My goodness. All righty. Anybody else got a question, comment tonight? Got a lot of fire in the house. I got a few of you agreeing with me. That's good. That's good. Let's see here. Yep, we all need to have a righteous anger. Jamie says, what are we going to do when the internal cells start to attack? It's coming. Jamie, you know, that's a wonderful question. I was with a dear friend today, Eddie Cole. We were talking about this, and what are we going to do? It's $1 million question. I don't know. You got some people who don't believe they're here. I go back to what I was saying, folks. And Emily, I'm going to talk to your question a little bit about the indifference. I hate to use the word ignorance, but when I see what the church is actually talking about and teaching about tonight, and pastors, somebody asked a question, was it last night or night before? It was Doctor Who. I don't know if Doctor Who's back in the house. He asked a question, or they, I don't know if it was a woman or man, they said, why is the church being silent about all this stuff? Why is the pastors not even talking about Israel? Why are they not even talking about what's going on in the Middle East? And, Emelina, it may go to your question about indifference, but I think it's just spiritual ignorance. And Paul said it. He said, when it comes to Israel, it comes to the rapture of the church. When it comes to speaking in tongues, when it comes to the gifts of the Spirit, let him that be ignorant be ignorant. Church is silent, folks. I don't think some people even understand. I tell you what, and Kleo made a good point. That was that survey that we read tonight was done in 2020. I would be very curious to take that same survey, put those same questions to 100 people that's 18 to 40 and see what kind of percentage you get. It'd probably shock us. It'd probably shock us. And I mean, go on any campus and just say, do you ever heard of the Holocaust? Let's see what these kids say. There's been some people that have done that. Lawrence Jones did it on Fox, and it was numbing. I would like to see him ask some adults that same question and see what they say. Because you've got Holocaust deniers, you've got modern Holocaust deniers in the house, folks, and it's the same people that are denying the Holocaust. Stu Peters don't come out and actually say that, but he insinuates that all the time with his tweets. He insinuates that he don't believe that the Jews are saying a truthful thing about anything. And if you can believe a lie that the Jews intentionally bombed a hospital in Gaza, which turned out not only was a lie, the hospital wasn't even bombed, the parking lot was bombed. I've not seen Stu recant that. I've not seen him go back and say, oops, I messed up about that. No, he was posting that picture just yesterday. This is what our ally does to the innocent children. And I'm not just picking on Stu Peters tonight, folks. This ain't a Stu Peters bash. Stu is just the face of millions tonight. He's the face of millions. He is the voice of millions that believe this stuff. Where are they getting it from? Where are they getting that idea from? They're getting it from the devil. They're getting it from the devil. You're just full of the devil. You're just full of the devil. And Jamie, to answer your question, the same people that are silent right now about this terrorist situation in Israel, and you ask, what are we going to do when the sleeper cells start happening? It'd be too late to worry about it then. It'd be too late to worry about it then. I will tell you this. Me and Eddie talked about this today, and we talked about it with James last night at 1 o'clock in the morning. We've been on a lot in the last 24 hours. Let me tell you this. I think that anybody in this nation tonight, I don't care where you live, whether you live in the Pacific Northwest, the Southeast, the Northeast, the North Central, the Midwest, Florida, Texas, all of these states, folks, Montana even, look, none of these states are safe from this. I think the conventional wisdom in the past has always been if you live in bigger cities, you're more of a threat. And like New York, Miami, Chicago, Atlanta, even my hometown, Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, Dallas, the big cities in Texas, Oklahoma City, all the main cities of the nation. And we've always had this idea that if we got hit with a terrorist attack, that it would likely take place in the bigger cities because of the bigger populations. If you look at what Hamas did, folks, on October the 7th, they didn't go after Jerusalem. They didn't go after Haifa. They didn't even go after Tel Aviv. And they went after Kibbutz, which was basically a small village in the southwest part of Israel, right along that Gaza Strip border. They attacked the most feeble, helpless civilians they could find to attack. It was barbarism. And I've got a deep sense tonight that whatever happens in this nation, and I cannot tell you what is going to happen. God only knows that. We better be praying against it. But I will tell you, I've got a gut feeling that whatever happens here is going to take that same pattern. It's going to take that same pattern, and it's going to shock us. Now, it's just these opinions are my own, and that is my opinion tonight. That is my opinion. It'll be too late to worry about it, Jamie, then. We need to be worrying about it tonight. We need to worry about it. But anyway, let's see here. Emelina, let's see your question. We've already asked your question. It's demonic, folks. It is. Any other questions tonight, folks? We're getting a lot of statements, but not a lot of questions. I heard Biden say there must be a two-state solution. Yes, Roger, he did. He sure did. And I have read that he spoke with Bibi about splitting Israel. And Corey, your question, Roger's question, I'm going to talk about that, folks. My dear friend John McTernan, I'm telling you, that's opening the gateway of hell of judgment on this country. If we push that two-state solution, folks, every single time we do it, America has a tragedy. Anytime Israel did. Can I just give you my 2 cents on this? And I know this ain't going to be popular and this ain't going to be conventional wisdom. I personally believe President Trump's problems tonight are tied to those Abrahamic Accords. The world and America, media, and a lot of political hacks on the right, they applaud that Abrahamic Accord that Trump was passing because within the fine print of the Abrahamic Accord, there was a two-state solution embedded in it. President Trump pushed a two-state solution. Joe Biden certainly has been pushing it. Obama never pushed it. He extorted Israel to try to do it. But Clinton pushed it. Bush Jr. pushed it. We're going to deal with all this on Wednesday night. Bush Jr.'s plan was called the Roadmap. I don't know how many of you remember that. It was 2002. I dusted off. I found some. When you move, sometimes it's amazing what you find when you open these boxes you ain't opened up in years because you have to. But I found a whole stack of articles that I had printed out way back in the early 2000s because we had a website called Spirit Journal. We still have the web with the domain name. And we would post these stories, and I would print them out to study them. And during the time of 2001, 2, and 3, in the brush up to the Iraq War, we had something called the Roadmap. And the Roadmap was a roadmap to peace. Condoleezza Rice pushed it. Colin Powell pushed it. And within the layout of that roadmap was a two-state solution. Bill Clinton certainly tried to push it. He did all sorts of efforts to try to do it. Bush Sr. is actually the architect of the Land for Peace. It was really called Land for Peace in the early 90s, and then it morphed into this roadmap and the two-state thing. But anytime that an American president has pushed that on Israel, there has been trouble, either in Israel or here. Ariel Sharon, folks, the reason you've got, let me tell you who's got blood on their hands tonight is Ariel Sharon and Bush Jr. They carved out the Gaza Strip in 2004 during this roadmap process. Maybe that's a little strong statement. I maybe shouldn't say that. But I'll just say that you wouldn't have the Hamas terrorists over a Gaza Strip if you didn't have the Gaza Strip to begin with. And it should have never been given over to the Palestinian people. And then, when they rejected the Palestinian Authority, we're going to deal with the West Bank Wednesday night. You don't want to miss Wednesday night. The West Bank is not God's term for that land. Judea and Samaria is. The West Bank is man's name for that area around Jerusalem. But the Gaza Strip's another one. You can't find Gaza Strip in the Bible. That was Ariel Sharon's doing. Remember a hurricane called Katrina? Katrina took place about 3 or 4 months. When we basically annexed the Gaza, it wasn't 6 months that the worst hurricane of this nation's history ripped into New Orleans. And it destroyed Bush's political career. And shortly after, not that he didn't already destroy himself, but Ariel Sharon had a stroke right after that, probably within the year. Never, from what I understand, Ariel Sharon never uttered a word out of his mouth until the day he died after that stroke. Stroke was so severe he never could even utter one word. So, when you hear terms like two-state solution, get your seatbelt on. Hold your breath. Hold your breath. Hold your breath. Hold your breath. Amy Miller, do you think that when or if we are attacked in the U.S., the church will turn back to God, or do you think there will be too many deceived in this hour? Amy, that's an excellent question. You know, I'm mixed on that. There will be some that will, Amy. I think it will humble some. The apostate church is going to get more apostate. Amy, think about this tonight. If the church tonight cannot define the evil in this conflict in Israel tonight, I mean, it's as clear as night as day who and what is evil to me. There's moral clarity with this. I've got moral clarity on this. There's no wavering. There's no even remote thing as to understand who's on the right side of this and who's on the wrong. We don't worship, as Steve Peters wrongly says, we don't worship Zionism. We don't make Zionism an idol. I believe the Bible has given a clear mandate that land belongs to God, and God, through his sovereignty, has given it to Israel. That's not worshiping Israel. That's worshiping the God of Israel. It's worshiping the Word of God. We worship the Messiah of Israel. But in the geopolitical sense of this, if you can't look at this conflict and see the two sides and see what's evil and what's not evil, not that Israel is any more better in some ways spiritually than Hamas because they're away from God, and Hamas is away from God. I mean, my God, Hamas is evil as can be, but I'm just talking about it politically, not spiritually tonight, but just politically. And you want to believe that Hamas was justified in doing the atrocities, and if you're blinded by anti-Semitism, you're going to believe that. You're going to believe that. So if you can't see that now, when there's been a tragedy in another nation and it's staring us right in the face, and it happens in this nation, the same people did not. Amy, I guarantee you what was going to happen. If that happened, there would be people in this nation that, guess what, would blame Israel for that, and they blame America for that. They wouldn't blame the perpetrators of the terror. You'd have, I guarantee you, Rashid Tlaib, if there was a Hamas attack, look, if Ilhan Omar, when they asked her about 9/11 2 years ago, remember what she said? She said it was something bad. It was just something bad that happened on that day, and some people died that day. She couldn't even define it as a terrorist attack. It's leadership. It's leadership. I don't think it's going to cause the nation to come back to God. No, I don't. I think some will. It will get some in the church shook up. But just like 9/11, it will be short-lived. The events of 9/11 are a distant memory. That's 22 years ago tonight, or this year. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember the 2 or 3 weeks following it, the nation was very solemn. People were solemn. Church attendance was up during that first month after 9/11, I think 180%. That churches that had been languishing on the vine saw record numbers for a month. It eventually waned. And by the time we went into Iraq, this country was so divided, and I don't know if y'all remember it. I mean, man, we were having protests about that war, and, and again, folks, we were given bad intel, and God, it was a debacle. It turned into a debacle for Bush. It turned into a debacle for this nation. We had thousands die of our sons and daughters, and trillions of dollars sunk into that war, trillions. Some of this debt we've got tonight still goes back to the Iraq War of 2003. And I'll remember those days like it was just, and I see some equivalency of what's happening tonight. If the church can't repent tonight, if the church can't see the evil in this tonight, it won't see it later, even if it happens here. There would be pastors that got up and would blame America for this. They would blame Israel for this. They would find a way to twist it. And then you'd have to throw in these other nuts that would start making all sorts of conspiracy theories about why it happened, and this and that and the other. And
I wish I could give you better prognostication than that, Amy, but my personal gut is if it did happen, it would only be short-lived. The Bible doesn't say the church is going to have revival at the end. The Bible basically tells us that the church is going to wind up in apostasy. All false religion is typified and personified in the great whore Babylon of Revelation 17, and that is going to be the force on the earth there in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation period. That whore had the blood of the martyrs in her mouth, like they saw the blood of the martyrs in the cup, and the saints. And when you see that word saints in Revelation, people think that means Christians. It's just part of the equation. The saints, in context, in that are the Jews. The Jews will be persecuted like they've never been persecuted by apostate religion. That, saying that tonight, should tell us again how close we are to the rapture of the church, folks. Because this, what's going on with this anti-Semitism, is prophetic. It's prophetic. It's prophetic. Amy, I hope I answered that question. Probably not what you wanted to hear, but that's what I think. That's what I think. The Pope called for the humanitarian law in Gaza. That's his stance. Yep, it sure is. Why is the church silent? Roger, I sort of, I can't answer why, but I will tell you they are silent tonight. They are being silent. They are being silent. They are being silent. Anyway. The church's silence gives anti-Semitism license, and silence and license have the same letters. They do, Jason. They do. But again, this anti-Semitism, folks, ain't coming from the left. And again, one of the posts that I read, and the person that was disparaging Israel was claiming that just because they were calling out it as a dark entity and Mossad formed, and the Rothschilds controlling it is not anti-Semitism. Let me explain this to you. Now, I'm going to be speaking on this, not this Sunday, but in a future Sunday morning message, we're going to deal with this very thing about the hatred of the Jews and what the Bible has to say about it. We're going to get into it on Wednesday night as well. But I want to give you just a little insight. Now, it's 11:28. I got 2 minutes. I didn't get to my videos tonight. We'll just have to save those for the update next week. Listen to me tonight as I close. When you hear people talk about the Rothschilds, what is that saying? What is that saying to the world about Israel? What they're basically saying is that there is a group of people that financially control the banks, because we know the Rothschilds is a family that's got a lot of money, the Vanderbilts, and there's another family that everybody just demonizes and all. And I'm not saying these people, I'm not trying to applaud the Rothschilds, folks. I'm not naive and dumb. I know exactly who they are, and I know exactly what they are. And see, again, it goes back to this bloodline crap. That was the other thing that the church is about, the bloodlines. That's all they talk about. Bloodlines, frequencies, reptilian DNA and stuff. I mean, the world is about to burn, and that's the only thing we can come up with, talk about in the church, in our telegram rooms, in our shows, in our networks. It's pathetic. It's nothing but pathetic. Let me tell you why, when you hear that, it's anti-Semitism. Folks, any student of history, you don't even have to be a PhD. If you will just do a simple study, and I encourage you this weekend, Google Hitler's comments on the Jews. What Adolf Hitler said about the Jews. Just put that in a Google search. There'll be some websites that are still out there that will tell you the truth about it. Not many, but there will be some. You look at his comments. The number one thing that he said that stirred up Jewish hatred in Germany was, the reason we need to exterminate the Jews is because they are in control of the world's banks and the world's money. He convinced the German people that they were entitled to that money, not the Jews, even though the Jews had earned this. And I go back to the blessing of Abraham, folks. The reason the Jews did control most of the earth, and the reason the Jews have flourished and been blessed, is something called the Abrahamic covenant. It's called the Abrahamic blessing that God put on Abraham, Isaac, and his descendants of Jacob. There's a good reason why they have flourished. It's not demons. It's not the devil. The devil's tried to kill them. It's God, folks. It's God. It's not because they're evil. It's just the opposite. And it doesn't mean that every Jew is saved. It doesn't mean that everybody that is of Israel is saved. It has nothing to do with this. But I want you to get a hold of this tonight as I close. Hitler convinced Germany first, and then he convinced the world that the impediment of the world's economies, because at that time, before World War II, Germany's economy was in shambles. Sound familiar? It was in shambles. He had to find a boogeyman to blame for the economy of Germany being in shambles. What he never told the people of Germany, and the German people knew about, was that Germany is the one that instigated World War I. And because of World War I, the Allies had put such restrictions on the German economy, and the reason they did that, folks, was to make sure that Germany could not purchase military equipment like they did before, to make sure that that money was not going to go to the making of a war machine. Sound familiar? And the Germans had to find a boogeyman. Hitler had to find a boogeyman to blame for the economy of Germany, not Germany's war maneuvers in World War I that was causing it. He had to blame the Jews for it. Sound familiar? Folks, this nation, this world's economies, all the economies of the world are in turmoil. Everybody wants to find a reason why the economies of the world are in a mess. We've got to find a boogeyman. That's another thing the church does. It never makes people look at themselves. It never, I hear this MK Ultra stuff and I call it crap. People don't do what they do, folks, because they're MK Ultra. Please understand that tonight. People do what they do because they're possessed by the devil and they're sinners and their sin nature controls them. It is a spiritual problem. It ain't an MK Ultra problem. And I will tell you to your face, without blinking an eye, you can go through all the counseling sessions in God's green earth and pay $5,000 an hour to every shrink this side of Texas and the Atlantic Ocean. You're still going to be a sinner. You're still going to be a sinful, wicked, demon-possessed individual. You need Jesus. You need Jesus. You don't need a shrink. That's another discussion. But let me go back. Just as the church wants to make a boogeyman out of that, the world makes a boogeyman out of the Jews. Again, tonight. It's happening again. And when you hear terms, the Rothschilds control Israel, the Rothschilds made Israel what it is, they are the ones that formed Israel. What they're wanting you to have it put in your mind, folks, is this evil financial entity is behind the blessing of Israel being reformed as a nation. That is a complete demonic lie. That's not why Israel was reformed as a nation. Israel was reformed as a nation, folks, because she is God's prophetic time clock, and it started the clock ticking down to the second coming of His Son, Jesus Christ, for the church and with the church. And on that, I will close my program tonight, on this Friday night. But when you hear those kind of terms, folks, make no mistake about it, they can hide behind everything they want to hide behind. They're anti-Semitic, and they're pushing the same rhetoric that led to the slaughter of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. And it's a disgusting disgrace that's coming from pulpits and telegram rooms of Christians tonight, instead of there being repentance and prayer for Israel and prayers for the peace of Jerusalem tonight. And sorrow for the victims of a terrorist attack where the moral clarity of what was evil and what was not has been blurred because of these same voices. Anyway, listen, I hope you've had a good week with us. My apologies for a little bit earlier. I was a little wired up. Even Kleo said she gets scared when I wear the cowboy out on Friday night, so that's pretty bad. It's hard to scare an Aussie, from what I hear. But seriously, folks, give these things some thought tonight. The opinions here are mine, and I stand behind every one of them. Don't even blink an eye doing it. As Rush Limbaugh said, I'll tie one hand behind my back and still say it. Now, again, you don't have to agree with it, but that's my piece on this Friday night. I hope you've had a great weekend. I will see you again tomorrow. I'll be home, so we'll maybe do a Saturday night gospel sing. After this one, I probably will need to do some singing tomorrow night. Don't forget, we got a brand new CD out. Keep on the fire line. You've only got about, it's probably too late to do it. If you didn't get one of our Prayer for the Peace of Jerusalem shirts, got 30 minutes, you better go on that Facebook page and get it. We got a brand new shirt out, a couple of brand new ones out to help support the McFiles Faith Network and show your love for Israel, show your love for God, the God of Israel. Let us say it again tonight, folks. We don't worship the nation of Israel. We don't worship Zionism. We don't worship any of the isms. The only thing I worship tonight is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose surname is Israel, and I worship the Messiah that I know to be Jesus Christ tonight. That's who I worship. And I'm not ashamed of him, and I'm not ashamed of this people after the flesh. I stand with them in solidarity, in love, and faith, believing that God is going to bring this nation through this. And knowing in my heart of hearts, even though their darkest days are ahead of them, all Israel will be saved one day. I love you tonight. Have a great weekend. I'll see you. May the Lord bless you all. Be safe out there. Be safe. Be alert. Be vigilant. Keep the faith. Keep the faith. And we'll see you next time we see you. And until then, McDonald out on this Friday night, the 27th day of October. Go Rangers! And go Dogs tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed. Take care. Put some fire in that house. I'm going to go out with one of my songs. And I think it's apropos tonight. In times like these. You had a good time with me tonight in Kleo. Put some fire in that house. One more time for me. Have a great weekend, everybody.
In times like these, we need the Savior. In times like these, we need an anchor. Be very sure. Be very sure. Your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. In times like these, we need the Bible. In times like these, we need revival. Be very sure. Be very sure. Your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. This rock is Jesus. Yes, he's the one. This rock is Jesus, the only one. Be very sure. Be very sure. Your anchor holds and grips the solid Run.